Launching and running a business isn't easy. I've been there and I get it. With the right guidance, you can avoid common pitfalls and build something incredible. I'm Amy Davies, a 3-time business owner, and I'm your new business big sister. Okay, Joel, are you ready?
Big sister, Amy, I am so ready. I'm so looking forward to this. You know, as an only child, I am so looking forward to having big sister and some business recommendations here.
Okay, well, let's get going. I'm so excited about this. And as I was thinking through the very first episode, I was thinking a lot about how it feels a little like starting a whole new business, right? Because when we start a new business, we are filled with anticipation. We probably are quite naive about how much work it's going to be to get into, right? Like you're at least a 2-time entrepreneur that I know of. So, what do you think?
Well, absolutely. But you know what? I'm kind of surprised to hear you say this, and I'm glad that you brought this up because, from the outside, when I first met you, you seemed, well put together, so much experience. And the more I get to know you, it's like the variety of experience that you have.
Yeah.
So, what, and I guess this is what we're going to be talking about and I'm looking forward to this. You're going to be sharing some of the expertise that's you've accumulated over years of obstacles and challenges, wins, failures, wins again.
Yeah, and practical advice, that's the most important thing. And the reason that I thought of this as your new business big sister is because I am a big sister in real life too. And my younger brother would tell you that I give advice in a certain kind of way. It's loving, but it's also the truth. And I'm there for the long haul and I want to see you succeed, not just make you feel good in the moment. That's important too. But we all have businesses to run. If you're listening to this podcast, you do as well. And I want to make sure that I'm helping you try to skip over some of the steps where I stumbled, right? I've had actually, people know me for First 30, but I've run 3 different businesses, 2 of which were successful. Fortunately, the current one is the most successful of all. But I have had the failure to launch feeling, and that's really difficult. And I've had to, change direction a lot. And I want to help people as much as possible avoid, we're all going to have problems with our businesses. The other thing, the reason that I wanted to start this podcast was because there's a lot of podcasts out there about being a business owner. And it's often about scaling. And the guests are the Jeff Bezos of the world. And certainly if Jeff, you'd like to come on this podcast, you are more than welcome. But the intent of this podcast is really to help people who are running businesses on their own terms. And that means maybe you don't want to scale. Maybe you want to start out slowly. You make enough money to feed yourself and your family and have a good life, but you're not necessarily looking to dominate the universe. You're not necessarily going to be running a huge business, but you just want a steady income that supports you and your family.
I love that this is, that you called it Big Sister, because right off the bat, it's exactly that. This is going to be safe. This is going to be a safe place to be able to share practical ideas for the entrepreneur that's not trying to create Amazon, but is trying to create that business that is able to support the life that they want, and not necessarily.
They might create Amazon. They might.
Maybe you might.
But, but I don't think we should feel pressured to become something we're not. And a lot of this podcast, and again, it goes back to the big sister theme. Your big sister wants you to be who you are. And that is at every touch point of your business, whether it's content creation, whether it's sales, which we're going to talk a lot about. I want you to do, and Joel, this is your whole, being online is like, do what feels right?
Yeah.
And that is do what feels right for you at the same time you're growing your business, and be, sincere to yourself, whatever that means for you. So today I really want to go through 3 critical questions that I think aspiring entrepreneurs, or maybe people who are already entrepreneurs, should be asking themselves, because these are 3 of the things that I wish that more entrepreneurs would think about in the early days. And I think sometimes we wait too long to have these kinds of, to challenge ourselves in these ways, because, and you and I know this, Joel, right? Starting a new business is so hard. It is so hard to do. And we don't even anticipate how hard it is, because like I'm feeling today about starting this podcast, there's the exhilaration factor. And we think, okay, this could be the answer to all of those questions. My life is going to have more meaning now because I'm going to be, quote unquote, my own boss, maybe. We do learn that might not be true either. But we have to really start asking ourselves some hard questions about, are we going to be able to keep things going? Because passion, as much as passion matters, it is, it's got to be more than passion, right? And I'm sure that you can relate to that.
It's the two P's. It's passion and practicality. I think
yes.
It's PP. Yeah.
Right. PP.
you gotta have PP in your business. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But because this is so good. Sometimes when we think entrepreneurs, we can get swayed by what we see on LinkedIn and everybody's sort of successes, and then it feels like you have a bigger hill to climb. So I'm looking forward to these 3 questions that we have to ask ourselves as entrepreneurs. And Amy, I think I'll add, they're tough questions, but I think also I'm going to encourage people to really take the time to be honest with themselves. And I know you've got a tool at the end for people to be able to do this.
Yeah, we do have a download in the show notes that's free for you. So you're welcome to take that away as well to help you get going to answering these questions. So the very first question that I think an entrepreneur or someone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or is already has started their own business is, what is or was my motivation for starting this business? And I'm sure you can appreciate, Joel, that some reasons are better than others, right? So I'm not going to be judgmental about what well, it probably will. Listen, I'm an older sister, so I'm going to have an opinion.
Yeah. You're an acting big sister. Yeah.
Yes, I'm an acting big sister, so I am definitely going to have an opinion, but I would challenge you to just sort of ask yourself this and assess why you're starting a business. So the first one is, I see a gap in the market that I know I can fill. I think that is actually a really good reason to start a business. If you see an opportunity, then go for it. Like, that's definitely what I did with my business. First 30's primary business is doing outplacement. So when companies go through layoffs, we help their employees recover from the layoff and get back to work. There are a lot of other businesses out there like ours, so we're not unique in the industry, but the way we do things is quite different, and we were able to differentiate ourselves right out of the gate. So we were filling this gap that in many ways was not being effectively filled. So it wasn't a whole new market, a whole new product. And it's actually easier to step into a market that already exists than create an entirely new market. So that's a really good reason. Go ahead,
and
Joe.
I think I think that's a good point. But also, and I look forward to a future episode, because I think as listeners are hearing this, it's like, okay, how do I do that?
Yes, that's right. That's a really good point. Yeah.
And I think we'll unpack that in a future, or you'll unpack that in a future episode, because that's really, again, how to be practical on how to look at that.
Yeah. The other one, and I honestly wish that I had more of this, Joel, is I'm great at sales. And if I had a great product that I could sell, I would be golden, right? Like, that is a really good reason to start a business. On the one hand, of course, there's an obvious gap in that one, right? You can be a great salesperson, but you don't have great things to sell. So that is going to be hard to do. So maybe if you can partner with someone who has a great product, you could be, it's one thing I will say is that when entrepreneurs are starting out, if you see a great opportunity and a great product and service, and you know that you're an amazing salesperson and known in that industry, that might be a really good time to get equity shares in that business and start from the ground up with a new company. Yes, you're going to take a pay cut in the early days, but that can be a really great way to start a business if you are someone that's great at sales. But we all have our different skills, right? You might not be the best creator, but you might be the best spokesperson. So you can think about that too.
That's a great use of skills is
Yeah.
that, because you're also partnering with someone and then you might even come up with some more even creative ways, and sort of push each other. But I like the idea if
Yes.
you're really good at sales, but maybe you don't have the product, use that great talent that you have, that energy that you have to support that other entrepreneur.
For sure. And there are so many other skills you can bring to the table. Like I've talked about sales because I think that is such an important one. And like I said, again, we're going to go through that a million times over in this podcast because it is really hard to be effective at sales. And sales is not the way that it used to be. It's not the traditional sales that we kind of grew up with, the ABCs of sales. But we're going to talk more about different approaches you can take so it doesn't even feel salesy. But the other one is I want work-life balance. That's a neutral for me. That's good. It's not like that's the worst reason to start a business, is that you have to have everything else to contribute. Everything else has to be moving in the right direction for that to work. It can't be a standalone. You can't just decide you want work-life balance. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably going to be really unpopular, but I feel it's important to say, is I see a lot of people go into coaching for this reason. And when I say coaching, I mean things like, you're a great coach, Joel. And in fact, I get the opportunity to recommend you all the time. And you're also a great trainer, but you are specialized. So you coach on communication skills and I'm sure many other things, but you have specialized that coaching and you are excellent at it and you have the resume to support it. So you have a strong acting background, which really helps you and it helps your clients. That is a great reason to go into that field of coaching. So I don't want to say that coaching is not a good idea. You really have to think about how you're going to differentiate yourself from other coaches. And Joel, as someone who coaching is part of their business, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see that kind of being everywhere on LinkedIn and you're not what kind of coach?
Everybody's a coach. And,
right.
and when you're looking for a coach, you can sort of guess within the first few minutes if this person is really a good coach or not. And that's one of the things. But absolutely, everybody is a coach. You really have to find one of the reasons you want to differentiate yourself from that. And also about work-life balance, I want to say, I think, yes, maybe sometimes you maybe get a little bit of life back, but you say goodbye to ever having a real vacation. Because as an entrepreneur, because you're always on, you're always having to check your emails, your phones, your messages, and until you have a team assembled and you can trust that team. But when you're first starting out, say goodbye to vacations.
Totally. And when you think of work-life balance, maybe some people think of that in terms of flexibility. And yes, I would definitely agree. Then you can have some flexibility. Like you can probably take that vacation anytime you want, just about, depending on the type of business you run, because you can manage your schedule for that. But you're still going to have to be checking your email and getting back to people if you want that business to thrive and still be there when you get back from vacation, right? So this one, I know I do have a strong opinion on. I hate my job and I just want to get out of here. And for a lot of people, starting a business is like, and I get it. I can't stand to go into my office another day. Sunday nights are awful. So I understand that. But please know that running away from something is never a good reason to I shouldn't say never. It's not necessarily the best reason to start another business. And that there's so much margin for error in that being your motivation for starting a business. So I would just put a word of caution out there if you're just wanting to start a business, or if you're young and you're really struggling to get in. It can be much harder to start a business when you're young. There's always going to be examples of people who are really successful. But I found that growing up in the corporate world really helped me understand my corporate clients better. And I learned a lot from the mentors and even people who were doing things terribly, Joel. I learned from them too. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's always something to learn.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And then, I need to make more money. That's actually, I think that is a good one. And I think that it's a good rationale for maybe doing some moonlighting. And what I mean by that is having your regular full-time job and then maybe taking some contracts on the side, which used to be very faux pas, right? It used to be the wrong thing to do. Your employers didn't like it. I think a lot of employers actually expect us to do that nowadays. It's not abnormal to have a side hustle, right?
Yeah.
So I think that can be a really, really good idea to kind of get you started. And then if it grows and you get clients, amazing. You've got a business. You can maybe quit your job. But it's always good to get out there first and set up that runway for yourself and then launch from there.
Well, a lot of people I know who work in the learning world and work for organizations do have some coaching clients outside of the organization on their own time. And going back to the coaching, this is a good way to see if this is something you enjoy doing. If you're good at it, you get a good response. And then you can start to see, I can actually have a business. But you've got, again, using your expression runway, you got some runway with it because you have tried it out. And so now let's go back to the airplane. You're ready for takeoff.
Yeah. You kind of hedged your bets this way, and it can be really exciting. And there's so much less risk. And I don't know what all of the listeners have in terms of responsibilities, financial responsibilities, but most of us do have significant financial responsibilities. So it's not like we can just pack up and leave our job tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, so that kind of ends the motivation section. I'm sure that I would welcome people to add comments about what are some other motivations that they might have.
Oh, yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can add some comments. I'd love to hear from you if you have more ideas about motivations. But that's sort of the list that I had in my mind. And that's what I talk to so many entrepreneurs, right? I've gotten pretty involved in the entrepreneur world. So I see these are the reasons. And the other thing, Joel, is I don't know if you do this as well. I'm sure you do. I'm sure we all do. We're kind of like voyeurs on LinkedIn. I'm watching to see whose businesses are succeeding. Like, I know it's hard to tell on LinkedIn, but people like me, we can tell. And I'm interested to see what businesses are still here in 5 years, because I've been out here for 5 years, and which businesses have unfortunately not been able to survive. And then I can kind of make an assessment based on what I've seen, or if I know the person, I can understand better what drives the success for those that are successful and what is driving, the mishaps. I don't want to call them failures, because maybe like me, they'll launch another business and it will be amazing because they'll learn from their mistakes. But I never like to see when somebody doesn't succeed in the way that they wanted to, how they define success, but it happens. And really starting off on the right foot is what can help you the most.
Well, Big Sister, this is your talent, though. Like, I can't see that. I can't look at a business on LinkedIn and go, and watch them succeed. This is your insight. This is your expertise that you have. Is that so many times when I'm speaking with you, go, I could really help them. Oh, I know what they need to be successful. Like that's bringing all your years of experience of all the different businesses and the different positions you've held and the different companies you work for. All that comes to fruition here. That you're able to. You're like the Wayne Gretzky of where, Wayne Gretzky, we always say, I can see it happening in slow motion.
Oh, that's funny.
You see it happening in slow motion, what's working and what they need.
Yeah. There are certain things that I see people make mistakes. One of the things, and as this is our first episode, we're doing this podcast, and you've been so amazing in supporting me, Joel. So thank you so much for that. But, I rallied around support like you. Yeah. But I also hired a producer. And they're also sponsoring the show, and that's Storyfora. And what they do for First 30 is not just for First 30, but for your I'm so used to being First 30, and now I'm doing something else. I have to get my mindset into something new. But what I will say is they make everything look so much better than we would ever be able to do on our own. So it looks polished, and putting yourself forward with a really strong brand and looking professional if you have grainy sound, if you have grainy video quality, that is your brand. That is you.
Yeah.
And people will see that, and it may not be that appealing to them. So those are some of the things that you can do to really get yourself off on the right foot. And I know it's so hard making those investments right out of the gate. But it's something certainly worth considering, especially if you're at the point of maturity where you can afford some of these things. So the second question I want to ask you to ask yourself is actually 3. I know Venn diagrams have become very popular these days. So I want to talk about the entrepreneur's Venn. And the entrepreneur's Venn is asking yourself 3 questions. And it's important to ask all 3. What am I good at? What am I an expert in? And what will make me money, right? So these are, I hear so many times, I wrote a book, I published a book all about having a successful career in a reorg world where we're constantly losing and changing our jobs. And I spoke to so many people as I was researching that book. I gave a lot of talks on it. It's called A Spark in the Dark, if you've ever heard of it. But what I realized was people want to go for their passion, and they're like passion driven. I think that's super exciting. That's amazing. But there are tons of passions that we can't make a ton of money on. So we have to be very careful about how we make that decision. And then what am I good at is really important too, because you might love playing the guitar, like you might love it, but you might not be a great musician, right? It's great that you get joy out of it. It's amazing. But maybe that is not something you're good at. So it's just a hobby at that point, which is really good. It's going to help you succeed in other things. And it's not something you should give up, but you should see it for what it is and be really honest with yourself, and maybe talk to your big sister and ask her how good you are, because she'll tell you the truth. I don't know if you had anything to add to that, Joel, because I know you're an artist as well. So
yeah. Well, it took about 25 years to realize, maybe I'm not such a great actor.
I don't agree. Being a good acting is a really hard thing to succeed in. And it's like real estate, right? Only 1% are really making all the money, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But, I do work with a lot of people, and sometimes it is hard to say, they say, I want to be a keynote speaker, as an example.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yes,
you do have a lot of
people. Yeah.
You do have a lot of knowledge. You do have a lot of expertise, but maybe you're best to write it out as a blog versus being a keynote speaker, like to share the expertise. Like your presentation mode is not the best,
right?
But your writing is excellent, as an example. So that's what you're good at. So
you could be a speechwriter.
Or writing your own blog about it, or write a book about it. Some people are better at writing than speaking, as an example. So again, like the guitar, maybe you'd be best to be a guitar instructor or have a guitar business versus actually being a musician.
Yeah, that is such a great point. And I think that a lot of people that are really good at things are probably seeing you as well, Joel. You're a great speaker. I've seen you speak multiple times, and that's actually how we met, right?
Yeah.
But you make it look easy. And I know the hard work that you put into it. So don't get me wrong there. And then people probably see you doing that. They're in your courses and you're giving them a great foundation. But then it's much more difficult to take that and then become a paid speaker. Paid speaking, it's very hard to do. Again, there's like the 1% that are making all of the money doing that. And then there's everyone else. So the last part, the last question that we're going to focus on more was what will make me money. So it's anything in that circle. And I've got your entrepreneur's Venn in the download today that will be in the show notes. So you can have that in your hands after the show. But I really want to talk about how will I sell my product or service? And this is going to be the first of many questions. First of many times that we're going to talk about this, because selling your product is going to be critical to you surviving as an entrepreneur. And I'm going to say this is, okay, you either need to find that magical salesperson that's going to help you, that wants to start your business with you. But if you are not good at sales, your business will not succeed. I hate to say it, unless you have an amazing network of people who you're already an expert in that field, right? So you can become an expert in a new field, but it's going to take time. So for me, my background is market and employee research. I did that for about 20 years. So the employee research piece really has helped me. The research in general has helped me so much, but I was not known where I wanted to sell my products and services, which was the HR space. So I started by writing a book. By the way, I wrote the wrong book. I mean, I love the book. It's a great book for people who want to thrive in their careers. It helped us build the outplacement program that we created to help people get back to work quickly after a job loss. So that has all worked really, really well. And by publishing the book and by putting it out there and making myself known in the space, and then hosting webinars for HR people, inviting in HR experts, I benefited from that halo effect, and I became known as an expert in that space. So if you are not an expert in a space, you can become an expert in a new field. So that is possible, and you will be believed a lot more selling in that space if you are a known expert in that space. So that's a very long path. And I think that the other thing that I'd want to impart is that it is a long path. There is very few of us get that shortcuts. It goes back to the 1%, right? The 1% who have that lucky break the minute they launch their business.
And I think for some, it's also that they were maybe building their network while they were at the job that they hated.
Thank you for bringing that up, Joel. That is an amazing point. Yeah. I always say this to people: never stop trying and giving and connecting on LinkedIn, because you never know when you're going to want to become an entrepreneur, and you can't. Networks are like a living, breathing, these are human beings that we're connecting with. You can't just disappear for years and all of a sudden reappear and everyone's going to know you and remember you. Like, memories are fragile. If you're not around, people will, they might forget you, is sad to say. I once went on mat leave when I worked in an office, and after a year I came back and I saw someone who was one of my primary stakeholders in the elevator. And I said to him, "Oh, hey, Mike, how are you?" And he just looked at me and he said, "Who are you?"
Right. Oh, dear.
Even I am forgettable, Joel.
That's impossible. That's impossible. All right. So what was your big break then?
Okay, my big break was COVID. And actually, I mean break because it almost broke me, right? It wasn't, that's what happened. We had our product and service ready to go. We launched in January of 2020, and then COVID happened, and people thought, "Oh, Amy, you must be getting so much business." And sadly, because there's so many layoffs happening, and I said to them, "Well, people can't work with a business they don't know exists, right? So we do have amazing products and services, but we don't have the awareness, and the awareness is key." So I would say, I'm talking about sales, and we're going to talk again about sales many times.
Huge, yeah.
But it also is marketing, right? And marketing is something you can work with others to support you with. But marketing is key, because having a polished brand and building, because it builds trust. Okay. I know I'm going to sound like a marketing person, but not. But this is why we're listening to the podcast. Yeah. This is where Big Sister Amy is coming in, because you have developed the tools and the techniques and see what works and what doesn't with marketing. Right. And I would invite anyone to have a look at the First 30 branding and compare it to maybe some others. I was really lucky to work with someone named James White. And if anyone ever wants his details, he is an incredible, he's incredible with building brands. There's a ton more things he does. So I'm sorry, James, I'm not giving you the credit that due, but I literally looked at his designs and I approved them the very first version. And I called him, because I'd worked in marketing teams forever and nobody ever approves the very first one. But I said to him, "Would you think I'm crazy if I just told you I love this and this is what I'm going with? I absolutely love it." And we'll talk more about branding another day. Maybe I'll see if he can come in and have a chat with everybody as well.
That'd be great. Yeah.
But so I would say, if you say to yourself, I hate sales. I don't want to do sales. I just can't bear to do this. You are going to have a really hard time with your business. Seriously, you need to think about what you can do to fill. I'm not saying it's impossible, by the way. I'm just saying you need to think about what can I do to fill in that gap. And again, we're going to have so many more episodes that are going to really go through what sales means today and how to create content that is going to bring people to you. So maybe you won't have to be as sales focused as you might have had to be in the past.
Yeah, especially if you have been in a position where maybe you did sales somewhere else, but now you're selling your own product. It becomes very different when you're selling your own product or your own idea. So that I'm looking forward to hearing about how we make that switch, because now we're having to talk about our own ideas as opposed to maybe selling a car. Someone else's idea, someone else's product. You could talk about it, but now you're talking about your set of services and skills.
And it almost feels like you're selling yourself. Like, I am so much a part of the First 30 brand that it feels like me, and it's hard. It makes it really hard and really personal, but you really have to build a thick skin. But the two things I would start with is, if you're thinking about your business, I want you to think about how you can produce content that is going to attract your desired audience, not the audience you're most comfortable speaking to, but your desire, the people that you need to sell it to. And that doesn't have to be exactly what you do as a business either. So First 30s, our primary product is outplacement and career transition support. But we just had a webinar that we ran on succession planning with 2 experts, because guess what? The whole audience that is going to purchase outplacement is also going to be really interested in succession planning. So you don't have to always be producing content about your product or service. The other thing, and I'll go back to it again, is LinkedIn and networking. Sorry, I know I'm using LinkedIn. If you're B2B, you definitely need LinkedIn. If you're not, if you're B2C, maybe there's so many other ways, and we'll also talk about those. But you can do as little as build up your LinkedIn profile, create great content and post it on there. And then you can go as far as going to conferences and, the traditional, the way you and I met, Joel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, you're a great example of the idea of networking, which is basically saying yes. And saying yes to people. I mean, knowing, if someone's just trying to sell you something, but
yes,
but saying yes when it comes to networking, and because you just never know where these relationships can lead to. The same idea around, your idea of a webinar. That's like, this brilliant, which is kind of thinking about who's your audience's audience in a sense.
That's exactly right. And, you and I, and actually I think you and I should have a session about this, because yes, saying yes is so important. But the other thing you need to learn how to do very quickly as an entrepreneur is learn how to say the most dangerous word in the English language, which is no. No. And I bet you have a ton of advice for that, Joel. So you and I are going to have to make that one of our episodes, because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who don't know how to just, you don't have to say the word no, but they don't know how to set boundaries.
Sure, and especially if you're a people pleaser. That's
I've been there. Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yes.
We're all, there's a part of us for sure.
Yeah. So those are the 3 questions that I really think that our listeners should be asking themselves, either before they get started with their business, or if they've started their business, even if they're well into their business and it's not working, something is broken, start asking yourself those questions. Again, it doesn't mean you have to give up. It might just mean you need to change course a bit and tweak what you're doing, or bring other people in that you trust, and then figure it out from there.
Amy, do you want to just repeat what those 3 questions are, like sort of as a summary, and then we'll do our next little bit?
Yes, sure. And so the very first question you want to ask yourself is, what is my motivation for starting this business? The second question is answering those 3 questions that go into your Venn diagram. What is my passion? What am I good at? And how can I make money? And then the third question you want to ask yourself is, how can I sell this product or these services?
That's great, and I think this toolkit that you're providing too in the podcast where people can download, I think it's just going to help bring it, because you want to take time to answer these questions, and it's not like, like while you're listening to this in 5 minutes you come up with the answers.
Right? No, you can't. It takes a long time, and some people never figure it out. Right? No, it doesn't mean it also doesn't mean their business is not successful, but maybe it's not as successful as it could be.
It's questions you have to continuously ask yourselves, because we get off track. Kind of
totally.
We get, because we didn't say no. And so sometimes we get off track.
Yeah.
All right, Amy, I think we're going to add, we've got a little bonus section here, right?
Okay,
So this is my big sister bonus. So you're going to share with us the big sister bonus tip here.
Okay, the big sister bonus tip when it comes to asking yourself all of these questions is, how long will I survive financially without an income? That's that's a bonus question. It's the most unfun question you have to ask yourself, and I'm sorry, but you really do have to ask yourself that question. Yeah. I did fortunately ask myself that question, especially since we know that my launch of the business was, my big break was almost broke me. But, you really need to ask yourself, how long will I be able to afford to survive? And you need to be realistic about that. So that's why I think the side hustle can be really great for people. Listen, if you're one of those fortunate and smart people who have like a second property that you can sell to invest in your business and give yourself a runway. But my rule of thumb, Joel, and it might surprise people, I think you need if you can cut your costs and still do this. It's surprising what you can do. But I would say give yourself imagine you have 18 months with little to no sales.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 years.
That's a big sister number, because that's like a very realistic and hard to accept, because you think, oh, everyone's just dying to hear my product or service. But it takes time. It takes time to, as you said, to develop that you're an expert in your field, that you have value. But I think, like I said, with the side hustle, maybe you have 1 or 2 clients lined up before you leave your job, and that's gonna help if you can. I always suggest to people, they have 1 or 2 clients lined up before they leave their job.
And one episode we're going to bring in a financial planner, but I want to say a financial planner for real folks. not the I'm already rich and I need to manage my millions. It's that I want to bring in a financial planner who's really good at helping people figure out how to spread out their income and cut costs that they might not even realize. Maybe you can become a 1-car household, right? Something like that to reduce costs for your family. One of you is not going, if you're going to be working from home, not going into the office, maybe you don't need that second car, right? Like things like that. I wanted people to think creatively, because what I want is to see everyone succeed at the business that they want to start. And any advice we can give you to help you do that, we're going to bring in those experts. So you can always reach out to me and let me know what you think would help you. And maybe that we can do an episode on that and bring in an expert as well.
Yeah, and FPRF, Financial Planner Real Folks.
But yes, that's a good one. You're good at making up acronyms, Joel. Yeah, you're very good.
Yeah, PP and FPRF. Yeah. Passion and Practicality and Financial Planner Real Folks.
Well, I did notice that I did not have the best acronym for Big Sister. After I came up with the name NBBS.
Yes.
We're helping you avoid the BS.
Well, you're out. That's it. The whole point is the opposite. There's no BS. It's actually really practical and safe.
Well, Joel, thank you so much for being an amazing member of my network. I hope that everyone looks you up, connects with you on LinkedIn. Is that the best place to find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Joel Silverstone on LinkedIn or check out the website, thisfeelsright.ca.
Awesome. And again, thank you. Joel's agreed to help me kick off the first episodes so that you're not just listening to me, just talking into a screen. It's a lot more fun when you have someone as amazing as Joel here to work with Amy, you. So I appreciate it.
Big sister, thank you so much. This You know what? I'm glad to be on this because again, these are questions that are still like ongoing. So this is really great advice, and in working with you, I mean, again, you see things happening in slow motion.
Yes.
So that expertise, it really comes shining through. So
yes, and
looking
that's
forward
my
to more
hope.
episodes. Yeah.
Well, if you enjoy listening, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you can get this anywhere. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you've tuned in. And I'd love to connect with you. So thank you and have a great day.